been doing it since he left?
Hello and welcome to Shuffling Notes. This is the third video in the Taylor Swift, the Tortured Poets Department, the Anthology. The first two videos we sort of went over our first impressions, and then we could have sort of dived deeper in some of the themes in the album that became evident to us as we sort of continued to listen to it. And again, everything we've been talking about, we haven't really listened to Taylor Swift before. We don't really know too much about her. And so it's just been an interesting experience. And in this third video, I just kind of wanted to take you through some of the tracks, or some of the more standout tracks that for me sort of I kept going back to. And Rezi, I'd be kind of curious to see, if, like, what did you think? Were some of these tracks standing out to you as well? Or because I know you mentioned previously for you it was more kind of listening it from front to back as opposed to like going back and picking and choosing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'll start off with the first track on the album, Fortnight. I think that is probably, I mean, it was the lead single, so, that's the one that probably most people have heard. Features Post Malone. But I thought it was a good introduction to the album because it sets the tone in terms of musically.
Sets the tone, yes.
Some of the elements, and we kind of spoke about the writing and the humor in the writing in the previous video. But this track as well, it's some of the words just kind of come out of you from nowhere. And here, there's that line she says, "Your wife waters flowers, I want to kill her." And it just like, I almost did a second take the first time I heard it. It's like, what did she say? Like, it's such a soothing song. Where did that come from? And it reminded me of like the punk rock songs of the old, like My Bloody Valentine by Good Charlotte. Like they have this kind of like weird, dark sense of humor, like there's murder and jealousy, and it's wrapped up in like a song about something else. Yeah.
I think in the album she's used a tense of fuck for every, like in nearly every
there's
song.
Something in it, the lyrics will just jump out and they'll be like, whoa, yeah.
There's like rage in every song that she comes across, and that she fuck her, or like there's, I think, fuck me also. I think Florida, that was Florida.
And I think from Fortnite, you then end up having, I would say, like there's a bunch of tracks which are kind of really groovy. My boy Only Breaks His Favorite Toys. I really like the tone of that song. And then the one after that, I think, is Down Bad, unless I'm missing a couple. And I think Down Bad, to me, is the song I went back to the most, simply because it's got this like Tame Impala-esque electronic soundscape. As the song kind of goes on, it kind of keeps building on, like they add a new sound to it. And it's just like, the way, and talking about the word fuck, I think it's in that song. I think it's like, fuck it if I can't have him. Like that's like one of the main kind of hooks of the track, right? But the tone of that track is so good. I just can't help going back to it and listening to it. And then sort of you have
True. I mean, there's one thing to add. Like there's there's, for example, I've heard the name Swift a lot of times, and while I have not at all touched other albums, this one has a storytelling aspect to it, which I really, I would say liked, admired, because generally, I think I've mentioned this before, that themes just sort of go very, very straightforward, in a linear fashion. While this has something that connects from one song to the other, or maybe one song to the later song, and I think again, because I've started from the top each time, the Post Malone song would be something that I went back to, because
it's the one you've heard the most, right? Because you're constantly starting from it. Yeah.
It just sort of sets the tone, and it sets the tone quite right. Like that's the vibe you want to stay in throughout the album.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think so. I mean, so going through that, then you get to the fifth track, which is So Long London, and this is something I just found out, and obviously I didn't know this beforehand. I was just googling this track. Apparently Taylor Swift has said this, and again, this could be wrong, that the fifth track of her albums are always something special. And so people were paying extra close attention to this because this is the fifth track. I think, I could be wrong. But to me, I think like, there's like this really fresh sort of electro rhythm beat. And, I think in the previous video, I mentioned how in some of the songs, she's got like this singing style. It's very like conversational in the way she speaks. It's like a slow rap. And I think this song, it becomes really evident. And also, talking about clues, like it's very evident it's written about someone specific, right? She's like, so long, London, you'll find someone. So London is like code word for someone that I'm sure everyone knows apart from us. And yeah, and there are some interesting lines in there, like, you say I abandoned the ship, but I'm going down with it. So like, so long, London as well, to me feels like a very special song. And then, as we kind of get down further, I Can Do It With a Broken Heart also stood out quite a bit. I think, this song to me encapsulated the themes of the other tracks on the album, which is very much that public image, along with her kind of going through her heartbreaks, and like performing for the public almost. And, that self-aware humor that we've spoken about is very much evident in it. It's sort of like a upbeat pick-me-up song with like this strange dark sense of humor, and again, really some really cool electronic riffs in the background. There's a lot of electronic music going on in this track as well.
There's a lot of soft guitar throughout, like, there's a soft guitar riffs, maybe, like you just catch on to it, and they just kind of fill in those spaces where you can specifically hear, oh, that's a guitar. That's quite interesting. And it's just like, not wherever she's singing, I would say she's not the girl next door. Like, she's someone who stumbles, falls, and gets back up, and tries to fix him, really.
And I think there was something you said when we did, I think, the very first video, like our initial impressions. And I remember you said, like, I guess you said you appreciated kind of how raw like some of the album and writing is. It's like very raw in the sense it's not like musically it's not raw, but it's like it feels like it's written from the heart, I guess. And to me, the track that's called The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived, I think that track to me stood out the most. It just felt like, it felt very personal, the way she's kind of written and she sings it. There's like this anger, or I would say it's not even anger, it's like pettiness, her voice. And she's like really ripping this guy apart, in the lyrics. And it just felt like, the rhythm is also kind of off. It's very different, compared to the other tracks. And then as you kind of approach the climax of the track, the bridge, the rhythm kind of changes. It starts really building up. It's almost like a diss track, I'd call it. This one felt really personal. And so to me, this one was like, even though like the song I kind of go back to is Down Bad, like more or less, just because like I kind of really enjoy it. This is the one which is more kind of like, if I want to listen to something and I really like find meaning in it in a weird way, it just feels like this one really came from the heart. And again, I don't know who it's about, or I don't know if anyone really knows who this track is about. But I would say this track really kind of stood out,
I mean, I would, I mean, like, are you specifically talking about the rawness of the way that it was presented, or like, just music?
The lyrics. I think the lyrics and the tone of her voice, because again, she's not really singing. It's almost like
she's sort of like, making you sit down and
exactly. And she goes like really far in this track as well, lyrically, in terms of like ripping the guy apart. So it just feels, the way, the tone of her voice, the lyrics, it just really stood out. And I think, outside of this, there's some tracks I would say that there's I Hate It Here, Florida I kind of enjoyed as well, and Guilty as Sin is the other one. I was looking at the track list. I think Guilty as Sin has, this kind of, there's this fun element, like she's fantasizing about this guy, and there's some fun elements to it. But I think that's about it. Like, a lot of the tracks I've picked, you'll see they're mainly from like the first half of the double album. I'm just thinking Claro also stood out to me. Although I didn't go back to it that many times, but I thought that one was also sort of very interesting.
Strangely, you mentioned that while Claro is something that, whenever I was playing the album, like maybe driving or just on the phone at home, and whenever I look at what I'm listening to, it always
like
turned
whenever
out to
you
be
were
Claro
checking,
Bro.
oh wait, what track is this?
So like,
Yeah.
yeah, and even like the both times when I'm like at home or in the car, I would be checking the name, and the name is Claro Bro. It I'm just saying it just subconsciously could be that, I just want
Yeah.
to know what the name is, and the name turns out to be, and probably is, it's a different part of the song that I hook on to each time, and I'm like, what name? So Claro Bro is something like, that I
Yeah.
would say was one of the top.
Yeah, and I
for me
think
also.
on Claro, I did have to look this up because I didn't know who Claro was, and I think she was a famous silent film actress, American actress, and I think the theme of that track as well, it's a little bit different. It's not really a breakup track, and she's kind of singing about. I think in her past, at some point, some of the producers said that like, oh, you remind us of Claro, you'll do really well, but you're even better. And I think she's kind of singing how in the industry that happens quite a bit, where as you're an up and coming artist, people kind of compare you. Oh, you're like, artist XYZ, but you're actually better because you can do this and that, and you're always kind of in the shadow. And she ends it on a similar note as well, where she says like, I don't know, she's like, I'm paraphrasing the lyrics here, but she's something like, oh, you're just like Taylor Swift, but you've got this edge that she was missing. So like, you're even better. Like she's talking to a new artist. So, and again, you've got that sense of humor I was talking about as well, right? Going through it. She's like in third person talking about this artist. But yeah, I thought it was this one I had to research because I was listening to it and I was like, I don't actually know who Claro is, and I didn't quite get it. And when I started looking into it, it started to come together.
As much as I'm listening to your perspective, I had my own. Like whenever you're speaking to me in describing any aspect of the album, it just comes back, for me it just comes back to Eminem's albums, maybe because he's also comparing himself to other rappers, Dr. Dre, Jay-Z, XYZ. But he just kind of I think this is like more of a and also the album is explicit, which I don't think it's been the case with Taylor Swift before.
I wouldn't know.
But
no, I imagine not. Yeah.
This one is. I'm just saying.
So many tracks.
Right. Especially not when, not nearly every track is a second track, third track is explicit. But your explanation just kind of is bringing me back to the fact that it's very Eminem-esque to the
and you make a very good point there as well, in the sense that I know like Eminem, it could be like someone could be thinking, what's that comparison, but it makes sense to me because like a common theme I find in both of these artists, and again just hearing this one album from Taylor Swift, is that they're both writing about very personal stuff. Eminem's kind of known for writing, like he's airing out his laundry, right? Clearing out his closet, so to speak. So, and I think Taylor Swift is known to do the same thing, right? She's talking about all of this, the most kind of intricate and intimate moments of her life, and she puts it in a song because she's got really strong feelings about them. And I feel like maybe that's where some of that parallel's coming from, right? It's a very unfiltered view of like, look, this is my life and it's here for everyone to see, but you're turning it into a piece of art. And it's not a lot of artists do that, because I feel like a lot of artists will write songs, there'll be some real life inspiration to it, but most of it would be sort of created from that inspiration and turned into a fictional story. Whereas she's not writing fiction, she's almost writing an autobiography. And Eminem is also, all he ever does is write about himself. or about his mom or his dad or Haley, you know. But it's about him, right? It's not like fictional in a sense. So I mean, I think that's an interesting point to sort of end this one out.
Yeah. True. Because that's autobiography.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good word, and it's long enough.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you found this conversation interesting. I'm sure we've missed out on a lot of stuff, especially if you're a Taylor Swift fan. So, you know, feel free to educate us in the comment section below. Maybe we will do another follow-up, who knows? But I think for now, this is probably it. So thanks for tuning in.
The end of
end of the road.
This is the end of the anthology.
Awesome. See you guys next time.
Okay. Cheers.
I need to forget, so take me to Florida.
I've got some regrets, I'll bury them in Florida.